listening to The 14th Source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses in the episode for Friday, June 28th, 2024.
All right, so it's an episode where we talk about Fallout.
Andrew.
No? Okay. We're talking about my love for Fabula Ultima.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad that everybody was able to make it today. Andrew, look to your left, to your right. It's me and all of our dear listeners, and of course, friends of the pod. This is an intervention. You can't just always talk about Fallout and Fabula Ultima, and we think you have a problem, and you need to face it head on.
I think I could probably, that could be a show. I could do my own show. I could do it.
I was gonna say nerd interventions. Sure.
Well, that's a different show. No,
we're
actually
a different show.
We're not here to talk about Fallout or Fabula Ultima. I'm here to drop a truth. Apparently, Netflix has renewed the Barbecue Showdown
season 3,
and it premieres apparently I think next week.
Soon, yeah.
Yeah.
So you scared me when we said you're about to drop a truth. I'm like, I didn't know you signed up for Truth Social, Andrew.
That's not good. Yikes. No. Man, I don't even go to Twitter anymore except for pornography. Which I assume that's all it's for now. Can you imagine like someone who's like, oh, I'm a social media manager for my like Fortune 500 company, and I'm going to go post stuff on a website or on a social media platform where every other thing is just like people fucking.
I just love how frank you are. You're like, yeah, it's the porn site. That's what it is.
No, that's
some
all.
of us pretend there's still a discourse going on there. And
the discourse is like, yeah, how deep does it go, right? And like, that's why I'm puzzled. Why like people are like, oh, find us on Twitter. I'm like, oh, does your company also do pornography? You know.
There was a funny cartoon I saw of like it's a cartoon drawing of Elon going into his room full of programmers is like, screw it, just make porn legal now. Who cares? And he walks out of the room. He walks back in the room. It's like, hey, can people see what you like on Twitter?
Right, like, please, let's hide that. Like, we don't want anyone to know. Again, just
Twitter,
what a
fire.
weird thing that. And again, like, I'm sorry if you are a big company and you have a Twitter account.
Oh man,
and it's not just like showing people fucking. I'm actually wondering why you're on Twitter. I really am.
It's interesting, like not to get too far astray from our actual topic of conversation, but a year ago, let's just say, we're talking about Twitter is a dumpster fire. This is him lighting literally millions of dollars, billions. How much did he pay for Twitter? I can't remember. Who cares? Like this is going to be dead within a year. Sure, it's still active. People still talk about it, but like it's not even a dumpster fire. Like it's just like burning. It's like smoldering embers at this point. It is dead. As far as I'm concerned, like it is kind of a weird, like as you pointed out, like it's a weird wasteland full of porn and
Nazis
advertising.
Like there's actually a shocking, like one of the things people joke about, like how the captcha for Twitter says like, oh, do you have you read Mein Kampf? So it is this thing where it's like, hey, there are only 3 audiences here: people that want to see advertisements, people that love Nazis, and people that just want to see dicks.
I mean, comics Twitter is still kind of active because they don't know. Especially since Instagram was like, basically said, we're going to AI everything. And we're like, we don't know where to go. And this new app, Kara, which actually seems like a pretty cool app, but it's everybody went from Instagram to Kara. And like the person that runs it is like, oh shit, I can't afford this bandwidth. And is asking for donations at this point. And you should donate if you want to support it. I think it seems to be a pretty cool app, but man, it was not prepared for the influx of business that it got. Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, I mean, there's also discourse out there about like late stage social media. Like, is social media on the way out at this point? Because nothing's really filled the void left behind by Twitter.
Other than those people on Twitter that are filling the void, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I know you're trying to have a very insightful conversation. And I'm here to say, like, no, Twitter is about getting raw dogged by, whatever, right? Like, That's the website. They wanted to replace Pornhub.
I mean, like, and other social media sites or apps are kind of lighting themselves on fire, or are just not capturing the light that people were looking for, right? And so, the big question, I know, in the comics side of the internet, people were listening to podcasts and people write articles about like running your own business. Well, one of the questions being asked is like, well, what do we do now? Because I think, especially in terms of the running a business side of the internet, where, and I'm speaking specifically when it comes to webcomics, it went from a web ring model to an advertising based model, meaning you have ads on your sites, clicks get you money, right? But when ad blockers came up, social media kind of became social media, and the rise of crowdfunding kind of came up. And while crowdfunding is still going fairly strong, with the death of social media, like, how do we get our stuff out there? How do people find us? How do we find an audience? And it's an interesting conversation, albeit a little scary. Luckily, not all my eggs are in that basket. I think we're at a liminal point of the internet, and it'll be interesting to see kind of what comes next. It's probably not going to be Threads or or whatever people are trying to do to fill the void left behind by Twitter. We don't need another pornography app, as you said, right? Right. Twitter's got that locked up.
Again, it's filling voids, just not the one you expected.
What I like is the direction I never expected was that Tumblr stopped being the porn app, and Twitter's like, hey, Twitter. Yeah, we got you.
What's funny, because, and again, we really are on a tangent right now, but just the idea that Twitter has had pornography for years, right?
Sure.
But now they're just like, whoop, I guess that's what we do. You know, like, oh, it's like, I guess we're weapons free on just having dicks and whatever, right? That's what we're, if you want to rate our show or whatever, like, that's our show. Like, we're talking about Twitter is pornography. No.
In the comments of this episode, post your favorite Twitter porn bot.
But no, actually, we're here to talk about something very different.
Speaking of upending expectations and changing the paradigm, we're here to talk about
Doctor Who.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about Doctor Who.
Indeed.
Because we've just reached the end of whatever the series...
Whatever it is. The new season.
The new season, which is 8 episodes featuring Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson as the Doctor and Ruby Sunday.
Respectively, yeah. And
so we're at the end of it. It was we talked a little bit about it after the first 2 episodes, or I guess the first 3. Technically, there's the Christmas episode is kind of part of it, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it definitely comes into play at the end of it, right?
Yeah. So yeah, and we've talked a lot about Doctor Who. A lot, and we talked a bit, I think, previously about how with the specials they did, I guess the 60th anniversary specials they did last year, they kind of set a very different kind of story, and we talked a little bit about that with the first 2 episodes, especially with the Devil's Cord, where we saw, Jinx Monsoon being the maestro,
right,
part of the pantheon.
Yeah. Yeah, still don't have a whole lot to say about space babies.
No, but here we are now at the end of 8 episodes, and we've had Russell T Davies deliver his first season of Doctor Who. So, All right, Dan, tell us everything you want to say.
Well, the most important aspect, I would say, of this season is clearly Mel. And
no, actually. Oh my gosh. Yes, I actually want to talk about Mel.
I do want to talk about Mel. That's all I want to talk about.
But we're going to get back to her.
We'll get back to her, because the whole scene with her in the memory TARDIS, I think.
Actually, I would say
that's so good.
And I think we talked about Mel when we talked about the 60th anniversary, the Redhead Apology Tour. But also, the fact that Mel now, who already, I think, probably the audio drama made her a much cooler character, but now here she is coming back to the live action. Bonnie Langford doing the part and rocking it in a way that probably nobody expected.
Rocking the character as originally created, right? Which is as a computer scientist.
Right. It's a software computer person who never used a computer until Russell T Davies showed
up. Until 2024.
But just this idea that, and I would say that it does have a vibe that feels kind of like what, it's not the same, but like with what they did with Sarah Jane Smith. In the, the original reboot or whatever you want to call it, in 2005 and 6, where she was introduced as like, oh, here's this fan favorite character, and now she's going to have her own show. Obviously, Mel's not getting her own show.
Well, hey, calm down there.
She did. I wouldn't say no. But just the idea that, like, here is bringing this character who really was actually, like, wasn't the fan favorite. Like,
underserved.
Like, a very underserved character that, like, basically was introduced in a very weird time.
Right. The Trial of the Time Lord, right?
Right. Like, literally a character who has no origin story, officially. And just, like, to lean into her and to give her, like, all this stuff. Right, like now suddenly she feels like she's popping in a way that really like was like that's cool and like just join the team like that, like there was no question, here she is doing her Mel shit,
especially in the finale, like she's like literally part of the final team,
riding along in the TARDIS with the Doctor and Ruby Sunday,
right, until that goes bad. But that aside, and actually kind of that. In line with that, sort of like the Redhead Apology Tour, we've talked about it before, how with the specials, it's about like Russell T hearing the complaints and knowing the complaints and issues that people had with the treatment and the solution or the resolution of Series 4 with the Doctor and Donna, right? And like kind of making good on that. Mm-hmm. And so there's a part of me that was kind of walking away from the season going like, okay, no, Russell hasn't been on vacation in the years he's been away. Like it's almost like, was his going away and then coming back part of his overall game plan? And of course it's not, but like he's a very aware and self-aware writer. I feel like there's a lot of meta in this season that I'm not going to say can get in the way, but it's definitely present. And the series is kind of painted with a bit more of a self-aware brush, I should say. So, and that's maybe more of a me problem. Like what I'm excited about is like I was coming at it from that sort of meta overview here, and at least that's the stuff I kind of kept coming back to. I'm excited to rewatch the season again, which isn't going to be hard because it's short. That's wonderful.
Which is great.
But like to finally absorb this new era, this new Doctor, this new dynamic, this new tone, right? But I was definitely comparing, and I want to kind of where you were coming up with the finale, but I was definitely coming at it with an ear and an eye towards comparing it to previous RTD finales, and was impressed by it. Although it still had all of RTD's flair and ostentatiousness and knowledge of the show's lore and history. With Sutekh, okay,
right, right, like.
Sure.
And it's funny because I actually watched the behind the scenes episode for the finale, and to hear like how he leans into like, Sutekh, this old foe of the Doctor, and you're like, you mean in that one episode?
He sat down. He like the big reveal of Pyramids of Mars is he finally stood up.
And it's like, don't be wrong, like, I guess all these villains were a big deal, but like
sure.
I do feel like when the Stolen Earth and Journey's End rolled out Davros, that was a bigger like punch in the dick or whatever you're thinking. Like then, here's Sutekh from that weird episode you haven't seen yet.
Yeah, right.
Right. And actually, I joked with you, I think, on text about how like, there's so many gods I could pick. Like I half expect them to pull Fenric out from the Curse of Fenric, but that would have been the same thing of like, that one episode, Like, all right. Which, again, it's fine. And it fit with the theme. Like, Sutekh, like this, the god of death. And actually, they glammed him up, right? Like,
yeah, they did.
It was just some dude in a funny suit. And now it's like this big computer-generated model thing, which I thought was actually like...
It was cool.
Like, seeing this villain curled around the TARDIS. And it was just... And I think that was actually like a really, like... even if it wasn't the best 3D model ever, like whatever, it was, I don't care. I thought it was great. I don't say that because I'm not saying that because I thought, I'm not saying that because I've seen people say that. I was assuming there's some shithead on the internet like, no, that model wasn't the best. Like, whatever, man. Doctor Who's never had great models. But that one, like, sold me on how just seeing, like, the villain, like, again, curled around the TARDIS, like, no, this is mine now.
It was an incredible image, yeah.
I think I would compare it to, in the narrative of Doctor Who, of like the few times where you've seen like the master, like, no, the TARDIS is mine now, right? It's that same energy of like this thing, which was an icon of the show. It's not yours anymore. It's mine, the villain. And I think they did that really well with a thing that wasn't just a dude in a funny suit. It was literally this creature, this okay, and I actually appreciate that. Like, is it Egyptian? Like, no, he actually said it's cultural appropriation, right?
Yeah.
This was an alien or whatever who just happened to adopt the the mannerisms of ancient Egypt.
In Pyramids of Mars, he's part of a race called the Osirians, with the implication that they came here and humanity worshipped them as gods.
Right. Yeah, I've seen Stargate, man. I know that.
Right, honestly. But I just had a crazy headcanon. I'm going to get a little bit like Tumblr nerd fan here, right? Without the porn. And this actually ties into probably something else you wanted to talk about, or definitely something you brought up before. The parallels this has to Series 1 in 2005, right? This is me, baby, going too deep, but also knowing Russell T Davies and knowing that Stephen Moffat's back in the fold too. I'm not going to put it past him. There's no there is a large arc, but one of the sort of hints they had towards the villain is that the TARDIS was always kind of making this new whining, groaning sound, right? Which turned out to be like basically Sutekh is attached to it. And when Sutekh is revealed, we see him in his true form. And what his true form is basically this canine, sort of coyote, wolfish looking thing, where I think it's really funny that if we're looking at it as a parallel to Series 1, where the hint throughout that season is bad wolf, the villain in this one is actually a bad wolf.
Oh, I mean, sure. They definitely... I think I've made the comment like that these 8 episodes, there are very big parallels, I think, to the 2005 series.
Right. What stood out to you in that regard?
Well, I mean, I think I think the first time I really stopped to think about it was, I think the third to last episode, Rogue, where it just very much was like, oh, here we are in like historical Earth, and there's this like dashing future man that kind of creates like, that presents this, oh, he might be a good guy, oh, but he has to like sacrifice himself to save the Doctor and or the companion. Now the only difference was in the original Are You My Mummy?
Oh yeah, that was the Empty Child and the Doctor Dances 2-parter, written by Stephen Moffat.
But anyway, the idea that where Jack Harkness gets saved at the very last moment. Here we don't know what happened to Rogue. That's one word, but also at the same time, just the idea of like going in far into the future in like the first episode, and then having a second episode where you do a historical kind of, or in sort of that order, which is what I think, right? Because in the 2005 and 6 series, we have go do a historical episode, whether it be the one with Dickens or the one where they go to Scotland with Queen Victoria, and then also do the go into the far future episode, which here we have with Space Babies. Like there's this formula that he kind of has, which is fine. Like I'm not complaining. It worked, and for him to kind of like, hey, go back to the thing and actually trim out some of the fat. Like, no, we got 8. Let's do it hard. And yeah, I would say. Yeah, it's to me, it just reminds me of, this is the guy who he knows how to do the show, or at least in the style he likes to do, and he's doing that, and he's doing it, I think, very well. I think for 8 episodes, delivered the thing, had some really like banger episodes, and not a lot of chaff, right? Like I think of all the episodes, and I feel like even though they may not every episode hit all the points, but just like I can think of each one and be like, oh, that was a cool one, right? Like that did a cool thing.
I think you're right. Like even if I wasn't maybe glomming onto the premise of the episode, they always found a track that I'm like, oh, this is cool, right? I remember when I read the premise for Dot and Bubble, I think episode 4, 5, something around there. 5. That's the one where like it's a planet with like the weird social media bubble around your head, and like people couldn't walk around without having their phone on, basically. Very, very on the nose commentary. I'm like, oh gosh, and I remember texting you before you'd seen it because it was delayed for you for life reasons. And I'm like, this felt to me that felt most classic RTD like episode, at least at the up front. But they find a new and novel and sort of, for lack of a better word, dark edge to that premise that actually treads new ground for at least a RTD run Doctor Who that ends in a very poignant finale, I would say, for that episode. Because up until that point, when seeing the preview for it and seeing the beginning, I'm like, okay, like I said, it's really on the nose. I'm like, I get it, social media is bad, it's rotting our minds, but bringing in basically, for I guess spoilers, I think that's pretty obvious at this point, the racism of the internet, right? The elitism that can come from having a walled-in community on the internet comes to the fore in that episode, and is pretty brazen for a show like Doctor Who to actually attack head on. And it was really cool to see them deal with that and turn quickly characters that you were up until that point feeling a lot of sympathy for, to have that turn around. Yeah.
Right. Well, that was kind of like a twist at the end.
Yes.
Right. Like where it was just like, oh yeah, like, oh, let's unload a big baggage. And I was like, oh shit, dog. Like I thought this was going to be a happy ending, and you just fucked it. But also, like, I think it worked.
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, yeah.
Looking through the very short list of episodes.
right.
Actually, there's not one. So I say this, like, I think about a lot of the seasons where there's always like 1 or 2 episodes where you're like, meh, like that didn't work. Everything here was like, they may not have been perfect, but I don't talk about them in a negative sense. Like, no episode in of these 8. Or 9 if you count the Christmas special. Like, they're all very different. I think, I think about like, we joked about Space Babies. That's probably like the weirdest one. And maybe the most weirdest one. The one that would be like the one we'd be like, well, okay. But I think other than its weird dedication to making that weird ad campaign about babies talking like into a concept.
Yeah.
I thought it was a fun start, and from there it just kind of was like, I'll joke, that was the weakest episode, right? They started weak and built up, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, in that sense, I remember
probably
watching.
Not how you want to make a show.
Well, I was like, why did they start with this one? And then in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, just get out of the way. Let's just, it's a fun, harmless episode, talking babies and whatnot. But it was a risky move, and it also shows me why they released the first 2 together, right?
Right. Because I think we talked about Devil's Cord, and I actually really thought it was pretty great.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorites of the season. If I were to pick,
yeah, actually, I would say, picking favorites, which I don't.
Sure.
Definitely Devil's Cord was great. I actually really liked 73 Yards.
That was good too, yeah.
Is a weird, like, Dr. Light.
We're not talking about Mega Man all of a sudden, dear listeners. What we mean by Dr. Light is an episode that does not prominently feature the main character, the Doctor.
And actually, I think about a lot about how 73 Yards as an episode, it starts and you think it's about one thing.
Yeah.
And how much, like, it was horrifying. Like, it is a scary episode in a way you don't expect. And how much, like, it was kind of troubling to watch, because it's just this idea of, for me, and I don't know if I said it on the show previously, but just the idea that, we have a character, Ruby Sunday, who's adopted, a foster child who gets adopted. And to see her just get abandoned by everybody. And that's basically the thing of the episode, right? That's the scary part. And it was actually like to have her own adoptive mother basically be like, peace out, I'm done. And like I would say, 73 Yards and Devil's Court are probably the two I will walk away from this season being like, damn, those were the episodes of the season for me.
Right. I would say so, yeah. And then in the rest of them, they're just kind of having fun,
Yeah.
and it's great to watch. It's fun to see the Doctor and Ruby have fun.
I'm excited to see where it goes. I know they have another season coming, and also a Christmas special.
Right?
Yeah. Excited to see. And actually, I'm going to touch on the horse shit in the room, which is Mrs. Flood.
Yes.
And you know what? I'm going to say this. Like, man, in the Christmas special, I think we talked a little bit about how, like, oh, she's going to be a big thing. Man, I love the fact in my mind that at the end of that episode, when she says, haven't you never seen a TARDIS before? I actually want to believe that they just did that because she's kind of like a known actor. And it's just kind of like, yeah, let's just have a fun thing at the end. And then people are like, oh my God, who is this character? Is she the master? Is she the burp? And they're like, yeah, sure, fuck, she's whatever. Let's make her whatever. And she actually has a line in the last episode, Empire of Death, where she just like lays shit out and you're like, all right, damn, apparently this character matters. I mean during the episode, not at the end.
I was going to say, like, are you talking about the end where she literally just breaks the fourth wall?
Says like, yeah, no, she breaks. No, I'm saying not the end.
Yeah,
I'm saying when, basically when she dies in the episode, she lays out this kind of like I'm gonna, I was gonna wreck everything and let your God know whatever she says. It's like, okay, damn, this character's a thing. And who cares what it is? Like, it'll be fun. Like, to have that woman who is again a known actress who's played, who's played things that people in Britain know.
Yeah, I think the right thing to do here, dear listeners, is do not go online and try to guess who she is. That's what RTD wants you to do.
Oh, he does.
He's onto your shit. Don't feed the animals, right? He wants you to guess, and he wants you to be wrong, and so like don't give him that satisfaction. And so it's clearly the Ronnie. Anyway, moving on.
No, but I love the fact that this is his thing, right?
Yeah,
like he likes this.
He and Moffat too. Like, they're working together. That's the scary part. Like
they're working together, but I would say that he likes this, but also thinks about it, right? Where Moffat may like the speculation, but also doesn't give a shit about what the outcome is. Where at least RTD was like, well, no, I think she's the Broops, she's the, this character is whatever, right?
I was overstating it when I say they're working together. I think it's like it's like RTD going to Stephen Moffat going like, are you seeing what they're saying? Because they're fucking nerds. These two are fucking nerds. They're Doctor Who nerds, and they have power. And that's not good. Right. I mean, it's good. It's great. But especially RTD being in the driver's seat here. I'm excited to watch it again once season 2, series 2, series whatever gets closer, so I can maybe hopefully watch it more as a story on its own and get my head out of the meta of the whole thing of RTD's return and him like absorbing fandom for the last 10, 15 years, however long it's been since he left, and making commentary on it. Like, I hate to say, like, my English major hat was on. Just like Sutekh, everything he was saying was like, oh, he's just fandom, right? Like, he's just complaining about how the Doctor's treated him over the intervening years since the Doctor abandoned him. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty on the nose commentary, great commentary, but like, okay, but I need to like get past, like, I want to just enjoy it as like as a time traveling alien fighting other aliens. So,
although, can we talk about the Remembered TARDIS?
Oh yes, we can. Yes, let's end on that. Yeah,
this is actually a thing that I had actually already seen.
Yes,
because they had filmed. Basically, they brought a lot of the old cast back, the ones that are around, to film essentially scenes that were intended to be, I think, like intros and outros to classic episodes. So they brought, I think most of the living doctors and a lot of the companions, because I think it was just like a special series they ran on BBC.
It was also I'm guessing it was part of the 60th anniversary celebration, ostensibly.
Right, I think so. But it was just this idea they had this weird set, and they actually even have the Doctor saying, "Oh, this is the Remembered TARDIS." And I remember watching those, like, it's weird they built this set.
Right? Yeah, I was like the same thing. I'm like, this is really strange.
It's weird. And now it's like, oh, they built it for this episode. And then clearly someone was like, "Oh, dude, we need to use this."
I mean, it was my second thought, like, where'd the set come from after I was, like, wiping away tears seeing the Doctor and Ace together again. But, yeah. Yeah. It was, wonderful little episodes. Not episodes, but scenes, like you said. And you can find them stitched together on YouTube of classic Doctors meeting up with their companions. And just kind of, especially because in Classic Who, a lot of companions just left unceremoniously, right? And in a much more emotionally and companion-focused era, RTD's really taken the time to put some, and Moffat did this as well, especially around the 50th anniversary when he brought in the 8th Doctor for his regeneration. He finally got a regeneration, right? Getting this sense of completion and closure with these characters that people, I think, kind of in hindsight, the writers realized, oh, people actually really were attached to all these characters, and seeing them interact once again. You know, it was heartstring tugging 101, but man, it worked, for me at least.
Absolutely. Which just to see that turned into, like, the idea that now knowing kind of the like, again, having seen the behind the scenes, they built this set for this episode, and then they're like, "Hey guys, can we do something else with this?" And just to see, and what I would like to end on is the idea that we already saw with the 60th, where they're like, "Oh wait, there's now 2 Doctors. Oh, we can do whatever we want." But also the memory TARDIS, they even say, I think in some of these little shorts they did, oh, the memory TARDIS basically can bring anyone back together, right? The remembered TARDIS. This is Russell T Davies saying, like, you know what? Everything is canon, man.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Which, continuing, the thing that has flabbergasted me the most is, like, the thing that he's latched onto the most in the intervening years between when he left and now him coming back is the idea of the, what is it, the timeless child, is that what it was called? Mm-hmm. Like the thing that the big canon changing event from the Chibnall era. That's what he keeps coming back to with, like, the flux and all that stuff. But, like, but what I love about it, he's like, yeah, let's just break down all these barriers. Let's break down all these walls. Everything is canon. Everything is true. Why not? It's a time traveling alien with 2 hearts. There's no fucking rules.
All right. Yeah, so Doctor Who, it's on Disney Plus. Watch it.
I guess we didn't really talk about him. I feel bad, but, like, Nchuti is everything I want. He's great.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
And we talked about this before we recorded. How both of us have kind of gotten away from, like, the fandom of, like, oh, it doesn't make sense, or, like, who cares? It's not grounded in reality. The one realistic thing they've added to the TARDIS this go around, the Doctor changes his clothes. He is not wearing a uniform. He's just like, I'm wearing this today. I'm wearing that today. Although at the end of the finale, he does come back to the costume he started with, and that was pretty cool to see. So the Doctor is allowed to change his clothes. That's what happened. That's what I've learned.
I mean, I would say that's the kind of magic we haven't seen since John Pertwee.
Right.
That guy had like 7 different smoking jackets.
Well, the seams kept getting torn because he was fucking flipping motherfuckers.
The man of action.
Yeah.
Judo tossing.
So he spilled too many Scotch whiskeys on himself. So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page of this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media as well, as long as social media still exists, which means you can find us at the places that Andrew and I frequent, which means you can find me on Instagram at dbethelcomics, and you can find Andrew on Mastodon at profounddark at dice.camp.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page, which you can find by clicking on the link in the corner that says YouTube. There you'll find the show simulcast in YouTube. If you are listening to the show on YouTube, please like and subscribe, or as the kids like to say, ring that bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusi, the other is called District 4. They're both written and performed by Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music and more at incompetech.fieldmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 attribution license.
If you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to leave some sort of review. Whether it's a text review or using the proprietary metric, will spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms. Well, the summer's in full swing, Andrew. It's hot as balls here. It's pretty exciting. But I think there's some good stuff on the way. When do we get new Lower Decks?
What?
Isn't that soon?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. I've been watching the Star Wars that everyone hates. That is.
Oh, the Acolyte?
Yeah, the 5th episode came out this week. I'll admit, I actually didn't watch it for the first couple weeks, I think.
Yeah.
But actually, I don't. I mean, I know why people don't like it, but actually, it seems all right.
Yeah, we're waiting. I mean, our only reason why we're not watching is we're going to wait till it's all up and running, and then still take 8 weeks to watch it.
I will say the one thing, my one takeaway, listening to like Star Wars people be upset, they're like, "Oh man, the Jedi are supposed to be good, but this show just makes them look bad." I'm like, dude, have you watched like other Star Wars? Like yeah, man, they're just space cops.
Don't forget when we first meet them in episode 4. It's basically just Obi-Wan, and he's hiding.
And he's also making up, like
yeah,
he's literally telling Luke, "Oh man, the Jedi were so great." Like,
dude, let me tell you what.
Yeah, you're literally you're make believing the fucking Jedi,
right? Don't forget, he's the kind that everybody says is crazy.
You and Yoda, like, you all had a real rough day, and you're just gonna make believe what it was about. Actually, this is my big fan theory that like all the and actually we know, right? Even if you only watch episodes 4, 5, and 6. The idea that Obi-Wan is lying is clear at the end of episode 5, right?
Right.
The idea that he's telling the story he wants to believe, right? Yeah, the Jedi were good, they were peace and order. Like, dude, they were shitty space cops that did terrible things. But you're gonna be like, "Oh man, we were so good,"
because no one's gonna fact check him. He's the only one, as far as he knows.
As far as he knows, we're the only one, you know. And Yoda's hiding on a planet that looks real shitty. Yeah. Anyway, I will say it's the Acolytes in the 5th episode. I know, yeah, people apparently hate it. I suspect part of the hate is because it has women, brown people and stuff.
What? Oh my goodness!
But actually, like, it is. You know, I have a low standard for Star Wars.
Not because of that. That's just.
Yeah, well, not because of the show. I would say a low standard for Star Wars. Have you seen Star Wars? Like, that's actually how I justify why I have a low standard. Like, have you really seen Return of the Jedi?
Honestly, like, these TV shows that they've been making have probably been the best part about Star Wars for a long time. I mean, you've been saying that ever since, like, the animated stuff, so.
Well, to me, the animated stuff is, I would argue, the best they do, but.
Yeah. So, until you learn the truth about a group of venerated space cops, I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast.
AJAB. No, I'm just saying all Jedis are bastards.
Yeah, no, no, I know. I know what you're saying, sir.
I don't know if you understand, Andrew. See, the police officers have a bad reputation right now.
They're maligned.
I don't know if you understand,
the Jedi,
Andrew.
They're all bastards.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I'm not making any political statement here. Right. Who doesn't have to look, act, or behave, or sound anything like the previous one.
In fact, completely different. Doesn't matter. Can be totally different.
Does not matter.
Does not matter.
Do you know what does matter?
Clapping.
Yep. After 1, 3. Oops. False clap. Sorry.